So you'd like to get straight on with quotation marks. Well, let's see how clued into this area you are first, and then I can decide what I need to tell you. So, to get started, I've got 3 short exercises I'd like you to complete. Once you've finished these exercises, I'll have a much better idea of your strengths and... So let's get going. What are quotation marks? Well, quotation marks are those curly apostrophe-like things that you often see at the beginning and end of sentences. They're often called inverted commas or speech marks, and they can either be singled or doubled up. It doesn't actually matter, so long as you're consistent. But what are they for? Well, quotation marks are for showing when people's words or speech begin and end in sentences. To make it clear when you're quoting precisely what somebody said, you use quotation marks. For example, in this sentence, you are recounting exactly what she said. What is actually spoken is called direct speech, and it always requires speech or quotation marks. In my example here, the words and punctuation to go with it go inside the quotation marks. Comments such as "he asked" can come before or after quotation marks, but they are not the words of the speaker and so do not need quotation marks. OK, now let's see if you've understood the points I have been making. Drag the checks to the sentences that contain direct speech and the X's to the sentences that do not. And when you've finished, click Done. Yes, well done! That's right! The first 2 examples contain direct speech. They write down the actual words of a speaker. To show this, the actual words are put into quotation marks. Other comments by the writer, not the speaker, e.g. she said and he stood up, are not direct speech and are not inside quotation marks. The second 2 examples are actually what you call indirect speech. They are statements of the author telling you indirectly what was said. These statements should not be inside quotation marks. OK, so let's move on. An important point to remember about the use of quotation or speech marks is that the punctuation marks, such as commas, periods, question marks, etc., normally go inside the quotation marks, not outside. For example, in the following 4 cases, you'll notice that the question marks, the commas and the periods are inside the inverted commas. To see if you now understand what I'm getting at, try this. Decide whether these sentences use quotation marks correctly or incorrectly by clicking on either the correct or incorrect button in each case. When you've finished, click Done. No, I'm afraid you haven't quite got that right. The first 2 examples are incorrect. The commas should be inside the quotation marks and not outside. The exclamation point should not be at the end of the sentence, but inside the quotation marks, as the exclamatory statement is only "Don't move that wire." The second two examples are correct. The commas introduce speech in number 3 and the question mark comes after the question, but inside the quotation marks. The exclamation point in number 4 follows the real exclamation and should not come at the end of the line. To check whether you now understand what I'm getting at, try this. Drag the question mark, the exclamation point, the comma or the period to where you think they belong. No, I'm afraid you haven't quite got that right. The question mark in number 1 comes inside the quotation marks after weekend. The exclamation point in number 2 comes after it and inside the quotation marks. The period in number 3 comes at the end of the sentence, as the sentence the character spoke was, "It was the hardest exam of my life." In number 4, there must be some punctuation inside the quotation marks. And as the sentence is continuing and it's not a question or an exclamation, then a comma is most appropriate. OK, so let's move on. Punctuating dialogue is not very difficult, but you do need to follow a number of rules. The rules are: always put a new speaker on a new line. Only put the speaker's actual speech within the quotation marks. Always place punctuation marks like commas and periods inside the quotation marks. And finally, if the direct speech starts in mid-sentence, then use a comma before you open the quotation marks. To see if you understand these rules, try this. Decide which, if either, of these two passages is punctuated correctly by dragging the check or X to the boxes beside both passages. When you've finished, click Done. Yes, very good, well done. The first passage is correct, but the second is not. The rule is that each new speaker should be on a new line, but this doesn't happen in the second passage. However, in both passages, it is only the actual speech that you find within the speech or quotation marks. And similarly, both passages are correct in putting punctuation marks such as commas and question marks within the quotation marks. So let's move on.
Bu dasturdagi barcha darslarni bizga tushuntirib berdi. Hammasini yozib oldim. Bu yerda agar nimalarnidir tushunmagan bo'lsangiz, YouTube'da xullas boshqa videolarni qidirib ko'rishingiz mumkin. O'zim ham keyinroq o'zbek tilida tinish belgilarini tushuntiraman. Keyinroq, faqat hozir emas.
Are you sure you want? See you later.
Doling Kindersley, xullas mana shu nima deymiz endi bularni. Studiyalar, kompaniyalar 1997-yil eski bo'lsa ham juda ham yaxshi dastur.